Welcome to the OK Show. Iceman, Rod Rodriguez. We are on a Thursday.
Finally, what up? Is this for
Right.
real? Is this really happening?
Must be a dream.
This is a miracle. No, it's Code Saver. All right. Anyways, doing the show on a Thursday, on schedule, almost on time, and just before we move on, just prayers up for the victims of the University of Virginia shooting. I'm wearing the UVA Cavaliers cap. This was given to me by my sister. My niece attends that school. She was at a Starbucks in the community when it happened, and of course, my sister gave her a call right away, and they were told to, lock themselves up or keep safe in that particular Starbucks. So it was good that she was at the Starbucks and she wasn't at that field trip where the incident occurred. For those who are not in the know, there was a shooting incident in the University of Virginia. Uh, it something about Virginia schools, man. It happened in Virginia Tech too, several years ago, which is the alma mater of my nephew, who finished engineering there, and this one is my niece's school, my nephew's younger sister, and it was a guy who was at one time a member of the football team, and I think he was one of the guys who went through hazing, and maybe he didn't like what he went through. He felt like maybe he got bullied or something, and all of a sudden he just like opened fire at some former football teammates. So University of Virginia lost three of their football players, and if you don't follow NFL, University of Virginia does produce pretty good NFL players. I can't name off the top of my head, but that's why I'm wearing it. So prayers up to those guys. Just because it's my sister's, it was a close call. You always hear about these school shootings in the states, but rarely can you pinpoint a relative. Or this is my niece, my eldest sister's daughter, who attends that school, who was in the campus, well, not the campus grounds, but within that community. So Starbucks saved the day for her. All right, got that out of the way. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Shootings? No, we don't want to. We don't want to go there. Okay, do you want to have something happy, or do you want to have something controversial? Do you want to have something that will stir the emotions of the opposite sex, or do you want to? What is it? What are you
Well,
leaning
anything,
towards?
anything. I mean, you live in a world where, it's full of emotions, full of mixed emotions, right? Full of happiness, full of sadness, full of loneliness, full of excitement, full of silliness, full of craziness. So there's just like a lot of things going on right now, right? I mean, yeah, Kanye West, which I think it happened like weeks ago,
That's a
and
good
that was
one
kind
too.
of, yeah. I mean that was pretty funny because he was so confident, right? He was so confident, like, okay, I can say all these things, and Adidas can't
Pull
drop
the
me.
plug.
So what? Yeah.
Pull
So
the
what?
plug.
So what? And then the total opposite happens, and that's so funny. I mean, you're like saying like, yeah, they can't drop me. So what? So what? Then the next few days, you're dropped from from that company, and
Same thing with
right,
Kyrie. On a similar
exactly,
note, I
right,
mean, similar line of comments. You know, and Kyrie now it's like on an indefinite suspension. I mean, I know it was like a 5 game suspension, but they're saying that he has to do and it's steering emotions of different sectors. It's the comments they made, of course, stirred up the emotions of the Jewish community. But now that certain punishments are being meted out, now it's steering the emotions of the black community. Because
right.
everyone's a victim, man. That's all I'm saying. It's like if you really want to dig deep, you'll find something, and everyone's a victim. So
We're all victims.
we're all victims. We're all victims, dude. I mean, come on. We're all victims.
Victima.
Even those who initiated certain things that maybe led to world wars, they would probably say, "Hey, those actions were justified. It's because we felt like our country was like that." I mean, like I said, everyone's. It's all a matter of perspective, and And I saw a short clip from Dave Chappelle, the genius mind of that comedian who's married to a Filipina, by the way. And he said that everybody in America is racist. That's why America will never be like, united as like a country like China, because he said everybody in China is Chinese.
Right.
And everybody in America is like racist, and they're all Americans when you think about it, right? If you're looking at it from a citizenship point of view, but if you look at it from a cultural, from a race background, from a whatever, they're all after their own backs. They forget that they're in the United States of America, and that it's supposedly, if there's a war, they're supposed to be fighting under the same flag. But because of how divided the people are in terms of race, in terms of cultural background, in terms of, it's really hard to be loyal to a citizenship as it is to your race and your place of origin. And I think that's sort of like that's the crack in the walls of America, in the foundation of America. It's and that's something that they have to sort of rebuild, I think. I mean, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of Americans since I'm not an American citizen, but I'm just saying, it's something that sometimes they forget. Their worst enemy, basically, is themselves. And as you see, like how other countries, and you would mention that, and we are witnesses to it. You would see how other countries, other like races, they tend to. That's probably why they tend to marry their own kind. Maybe to avoid that kind of conflict eventually. I don't really know, but that's a problem that I don't know if Biden can solve that. I don't know if Trump can solve that. I don't know if any president can solve that. Because if you're of a country full of people from different races and different, religious practices and different cultural norms and different mindsets and different temperaments and, different upbringing, it just goes to show you that, that America, what does America represent, and how strong is the identity that it infuses upon its citizens. Is America just Kanye and Beyonce and NFL and NBA and Michael Jackson and rap and the Avengers and whatnot? Is that what America is? Is there anything else beyond it? Are those the only things that unite the Americans? Pop culture? And when you think about it, maybe those are the only things that unite America. Because like if you look at the Chinese, they're united by what they eat. They're united by who they pray to. They're united by their business practices. They're united by their, how they are as a family. In America, there's no such thing. There's the way things white people do it, and there's a way black people do it, and there's a way Mexicans do it, and there's a way. That's tough, man. If you were president of the U.S., how would you deal with that? Because that's a puzzle that has not been solved. And they thought they were done and over with after Civil War. They're like, okay, we have the Declaration of Independence. We have our Pledge of Allegiance. We have our, Star Spangled Banner.
I think
We're
it's just
good.
too big to be, it's just too big to be united.
It's too diverse.
Just too, well, I mean, the place itself, it's just too big. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Russia's
not
big.
like
China's big. I mean, if you're talking geography, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's geography. I mean, the Chinese who are living in San
No, I mean,
Francisco
okay.
have a lot in common with the Chinese who are still living in
You have
China.
this really big place with different people living in it, right?
That's the one.
So that's the problem. It's so big with so many different kinds of people living in it. Now, when you say like Russia, well, there's
That's-
just like Russians over there, I guess, right? You say
Yeah.
China, it's just like Chinese over there. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's really big, but they're like all Chinese, whatever, right? But then you talk about America, it's really big. It has like what?
Okay,
50
what about
states?
Canada though? Like, what about Canada? Like, Canada is the closest country if you compare it to like America, right? And we have Ian joining us. I don't know if he's still on board, but Ian, what's up? Our friend, our Canadian citizen friend, who I hope is still Filipino. But nothing wrong with being Canadian. That's a peace-loving country and never been involved in wars. If I'm not, maybe they did dip their feet into it, but no, never really had a major enemy. Always associated with being a friendly country. Even though bullied by America for years. What about Canada though? Like Canada, they have a lot of Chinese. Canada, there's a bit of maybe there's a bit of a separation. Like if you go to the French territories, like Montreal and all that, I hear like sometimes the French are a bit, you know, they kind of separate themselves from the non-French sort of. But
I would if I'm from Montreal. If I can speak French and these motherfuckers can't, I'm like, hey, I can speak French.
I
would
know.
differentiate myself from
So
these
that's kind of
people.
understandable because that's something like you can kind of avoid,
Right.
like
But
if
it's
you
not
know
a
that,
race thing. He's
right?
like, well, I can speak French.
It's not
Right? I'm fucking better than
yeah.
you.
Yeah. It could be a race. I don't know if it's a race thing because I don't know if it's just about speaking French. Maybe they respect you more if you speak
Hey,
French.
if
Right?
that was me,
Right?
like
Right. It's
me
a big
now,
deal.
then I was born in Montreal and I can speak French or whatever, then I'd probably feel the same. Like it doesn't matter what color they are, if they can't speak French, nada. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's in Canada though, you know? Like it's not in France. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
that's the point. They're in Canada and they can speak French. Isn't that special? It's like you're in the Philippines and you can speak French. That would be freaking special.
yeah, but
If
it's
there's
like I
like
mean,
one place,
yeah, but it's like being in the Philippines is you can speak English. That doesn't make it any another
yeah, but
language doesn't
no,
make
but
it any different than the
no, I
other.
mean,
I
no,
mean,
English, like okay, English is like everybody speaks it. It's just a matter of how well you can carry an accent, right? Like everybody can speak English. I mean, not everybody, but almost everybody that I know can be able to communicate in English. They can have a conversation with anybody. Well, it
even if
just
it's
depends
broken
on,
English,
yeah,
right?
even if it's broken English, and the accent would vary, but I mean, they can speak English nonetheless, so it's not really that special. But if we're talking about like, for example, like if there's a particular place in the Philippines, let's say for example, like there's one city, like even if it's a small city, and all the people there can speak really good French, like really fluent, right? And they can also speak all of the, like the things that we can speak, in terms of like the dialects that the major dialects that we like we speak in the Philippines. If they can speak that as well, and plus the French, that would be really damn special,
Yeah,
right?
good point. Good
They
point.
would
I
feel
see. I
like
see what
they
you're
would
trying to
feel like
say.
they would feel like, all right, I'm better than you guys because I can speak
There's
French,
exclusivity to it, and
something like that. Yeah.
and if they speak French or if they speak some sort of language in that particular territory of a country that's not really France or whatever, there's usually like a background behind it, like because maybe that place was the territory of the French or that's where the French lived or whatever. So there is that connection that you have with a place that maybe other people won't have if they just come in there and visit, right? Because it's like, hey, like here in the Philippines, right? There's Sagada, is it right? There's a part of the like in the mountain province where the little kids there speak like American English or something. And they speak like straight English. Or they look like street kids, but they speak like perfect English, something like that. And I think it's in Sagada. I think I stand corrected, but you get blown away because yeah, Filipinos speak English, but you don't speak straight English unless like you went to an American school or you've been abroad or you grew up in a major city, not in the mountain province. But apparently, I think that part of the Philippines, maybe there were like missionaries there or something, or a lot of the kids there grew up with American teachers or something. But it's sort of like that kind of an experience, and I get what you mean. I get what you mean, but yeah, in the U.S. though, I don't know, man. It's tough because it's not even racism anymore. You can't even say people are racist. I think people just watch their own backs. It's all about like I'm black, you're white, I'm Jewish, I'm Chinese, I'm Asian, I'm Mexican. It's basically that. It's not about this and another race. It's more about being overprotective about your own. And I think that's what's happening. It's like being sensitive to your own race does not necessarily translate to you being racist. It just, of course, you're gonna be more sensitive when it pertains to your own race. I mean, when I watch the news and let's say you hear like a particular member of the minority who's a senior citizen, like all of a sudden randomly gets punched on the street in San Francisco or in LA or New York or in Chicago, you're like, oh, that's bad. Why did they do that to that old person? But when the news anchor says it's a Filipino elderly and it's an attack on Asians, that's different. You're like, even if I'm here in the Philippines, I'd be like, oh shit, my mom's there. My mom's an elderly. My aunt's there. She's a senior citizen. You know, you'd be like, oh shit, it's an attack on the Filipinos. All of a sudden, you listen closely and you pay more attention. And I think that's what's happening in the U.S. It's like whatever. I think what Kyrie was trying to say is that the history of his black ancestors, it was being ignored, and the history of other, minorities or other groups were being glorified, or were being taught in school, or were being observed, but the African Americans, they were not. So I don't think he was necessarily attacking any. I mean, I'm not protecting him. I'm just saying that my understanding of it is that because when he was asked if he was anti-Semitic, I think he, obviously he denied it. And obviously later on he did, but he didn't directly deny it. But I think he was more about showcasing how the blacks were, how many blacks were like, I don't know, victims or whatever from back in the day. It was more about his ancestors than an attack on another particular group of people or race. And I think that's what's happening in the U.S. It's not one race attacking the other. It's more of like just protecting their own kind. So everyone's like the enemy now, Like if you're an Asian, you got to watch your back because you might be accused of being, the bearer of COVID. If you're black, you got to watch your back because the cops might step on your throat and kill you or make it an arrest. If you're Jewish, you got to watch your back because your business might be, in danger and might, be going through attacks in your community or something because of the wealth that you are making, and you'll be accused of exploiting certain people for your own benefit. And it's kind of like you got to watch your own back. And that's what's scary about the US is that people are so divided. And it's, and there's no one group or there's no one, like for example, if your president's white, who's going to listen to the guy, right? Who's going to listen to the guy? He can't speak on behalf of minorities. He can't speak, even if he speaks from the heart. No one's going to look at him and say, oh, that guy is on our side. I mean, even Obama wasn't able to do it and he was black, It was black Asian. So that's, that's tough, man. I don't really know. I'm just saying like it's like in the Philippines, if let's say the Ilocanos had a fight with the Ilonggos, that's different. At the end of the day, we're still Filipinos. At the end of the day, that's not gonna last. That's more of like a tribal war. That's more of like a stereotype. The Warais versus the whatever. That's a movie with Nida Blanca and Gloria Romero. But in the U.S., if it's about races, that's scary, and it's happening in one country, and I don't really know. Like all of a sudden you look at somebody and like that's the enemy. Just because, you don't share the same color. And in Canada, I don't know how they do it really, I mean, there are a lot of white folks there. A lot of Filipinos work for white folks there. But I don't really know how they do it. Is it through leadership? Is it just because people there are more chill? Is it because their pop culture and their music doesn't really promote any of that stuff? Or nobody's stirring the pot, nobody's stirring controversy, or no, they don't have a history of the Black Panthers, and they don't have Holocaust victims. What is it? I'm trying to figure that out because Canada is the closest to the U.S. That's tough, right? How would you figure it out? How would you solve it? How would you be a peacekeeper amongst men? What would be like, the hell with you, go kill each other?
I know it's really hard. It's hard to say something about these things. I mean, as an observer, right? Because I don't live there. I'm not American in the first place, right? But we're observing, and
We're
we certainly
observants,
have
yeah,
our own
observers, yeah.
opinions. in terms of how to deal with things and how to. I mean, we can't tell people how to feel about it, right? I mean,
No,
me,
yeah.
I would be indifferent and I would be like, all right, whatever. Um, like for example, one friend. I don't know if this is like in parallel what's what's what we have been talking about the last few minutes, but there was this friend who's from Spain, and when she found out I was that I'm Filipino, she kind of like sort of apologized, something like that, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, like, wait, sorry for what? Like, like for what happened back in, I don't know, 1500s. I was like, I'm
I know we could care less, right?
like that was like I don't know. I mean, you didn't do it, and like I wasn't. I definitely wasn't there. So I'm like,
Exactly.
it's like I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like the important thing is that we're friends. Like you're my friend. Like we hang out. So I think
Yeah.
that's how I felt about it. I didn't like, oh, you're from Spain.
It's a
You're
perfect
the devil,
response.
whatever.
I
You
think your
called me
response was
Indio
the
back
perfect
then.
response.
So I
You
was
weren't
just like,
there.
yeah.
Your friend
So
wasn't there. That was a product of the times. Whatever occurred then, right? That
yeah,
was a
okay,
product of the
that's true.
times.
That's true. I mean, the fact that you recognized history, I mean, that's something, but you didn't really need to apologize. I mean, I don't really feel anything about the Spanish. Like, I know we study history, right? Like, I'm in Japan right now. And for 3 years, Japan during the war, in World War II.
It's Korea,
Dude,
right? The Philippines, yeah, and Korea too.
yeah,
Korea has a major issue with Japan. Like
exactly. All right. So they have like they have their own issues. We have our issues with Japan, but to me, I don't feel anything about it. I'm like, well, that was like in 1942 or something, and that was like a long time ago.
you
And the
think of
people who are
Japan, you
alive
think of
now,
opportunity, right?
I know the
Now,
people who are alive now, they didn't have anything to do with that. And if there are people here who kind of like act, you know, um, I don't know if I would call them racist, but I mean, there's certainly that sort of um, it's not racism, but it's more of like uh,
superiority,
no, 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 not really. It's what's the term? I kind of like used that term
elitism,
before.
elitist.
No, 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 no. It's God damn it. Well, it's not racism, but it's more of man.
Discrimination. Discrimination.
Yeah, discrimination. Okay, okay, all right, okay. That would fit it. That would fit the word. I'm looking for a word, but anyway, all right, okay. So some of them would discriminate, right? Some of them would be judgmental in a way towards foreigners, like, especially
They
if
profile you. They stereotype you.
right, right. If especially if they've heard stuff from other people or they've seen something on the news, and automatically they just judge everybody, or they judge a particular person, a particular nationality in terms of what they heard or what they saw on TV. So that's kind of tough, right? But that's their I mean, that's how they think. It has nothing to do with what happened in 1942. So if they're like silly Japanese here, then that's on them, not necessarily related to what happened in 1942. Because there are like really nice Japanese people around here. Those people who wouldn't say like me. You could you could you could be um me as a foreigner. I'm still, like I said, I'm racist to my own. You know what I'm saying? Like I discriminate towards like my own and foreigners, right? I I would do the same. I would like, all right, so I mean, there's lots of foreigners here, whatever. So I should be careful. But then there are times that I'd be like, no, I don't lock my doors. Why? Oh, yeah, well, I'm in. Oh, okay. I'm giving the wrong example here. Okay, let's say for example, I say I don't lock my doors because I'm in Japan, and there's just like like it's perfectly safe. There's just like all like mostly Japanese around, so I don't think. But then my friends would say like, no, it doesn't matter. Like you know, you should lock your doors. It's not because like you're in Japan or like they're Japanese like that. No, it doesn't follow. That's what they say. Does it matter? Japanese or not, you should,
They, it seems like sometimes it comes off as if you're more trusting of Japanese than you are of Filipinos.
right.
I
And
mean, to put it bluntly, right? That's
yeah,
basically
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. That's true. But then my Japanese friends would say like, no, that's not necessarily true. They're like also bad Japanese. So so that's what I'm saying. Like they would, I stand corrected. Like me, I'm like, okay. Sometimes I act like that. I act silly, and they would say like, no, that's not true. But then in reality, that's how I feel too. Like for the most part, I'm like, oh my god, like all right. So there's a place where there's like lots of foreigners crawling, and I mean
It's just
foreigners, I mean like
yeah.
not Japanese people.
It's
But
the
then
same
Japanese
like
people will be like, no, it's
I know it's kind of the same like your attitude towards it. I don't see it any different as like let's say you go to Brazil and there's a tourist guide. And the tourist guide will tell you, don't whip out your phone because it will be stolen. When we walk by the favelas or the squatters, as they would refer to it as, like don't show any jewelry or whatever. Like they're basically warning you of the crime that might be committed of their own kind, right?
right.
And these are like tourist guides, and they would tell you that. Like even if you go to Europe, not that I've been to, like these tours, but I'm just saying, obviously they will warn you of that.
But
I mean,
then
even at the right.
yeah, right, right. That's what we're trying to do. But then my wife heard like a Japanese couple like last week when she went to the convenience store. She was yeah, she was returning to her car. She was getting in her car, and there were two old Japanese couples who were like, uh, getting out of their cars and going into the convenience store. And I don't recall if it was the husband or the wife who said something to like the spouse that, hey, lock the door because there's like lots of foreigners here. And she heard that and she felt really offended. She was just like, holy shit. So she was like, yeah, in a way, she didn't feel right hearing that. So I was like, all right. But then me, from time to time, I felt that way, right? So I don't know. It's just like it's
Yeah.
crazy. But she
It's
felt
yeah.
yeah,
It's
she felt
it's
sour with that.
it's tough, man. We're all sensitive if it affects our own kind. That's basically it. And I think that's what America has to figure out. Like how there can't possibly be a representation of every race. I mean, I know you have the how yeah, they have their congressmen and the elections just concluded, and I think the Republicans took over control again of the Congress because they're more of them were elected in, and I think Trump's gonna run again, according to him, in 2024 or something like that. Maybe because he knows that he'll win the Congress or something. But regardless of that, I don't think it really makes a difference. You could have a black president, you could have a white president, you could have unless you have a president who represents all races or all minority groups. Even that person probably won't even be able to do anything because if he does a certain thing, he will be like, "Oh, you're favoring your Asian side. Oh, you're favoring your Caucasian side. Oh, you're a whitewash. Oh, you're a thug. Whatever." It's really tough because that's what makes America great, but that's also what makes America like a difficult situation to solve or figure out. It does welcome all these people. Bring me, you're tired, you're weary, you're oppressed. But then again, when they get there, how do they learn to live with each other when there is no particular standard that America is? I mean, the right to bear arms, it's not, it's an option. They say it's a right, but it's an option. There are people who do not want weapons or guns in their houses, and they don't feel safe when they have it. So, is that what America is? The right to free speech? Yeah, sure, but there are people who don't need their opinions to be heard. Those apply to anyone, you know. But what the Chinese have is that it's in their blood. And that's the difference with America, is that whatever Americans have, it's not in their blood. What's in their blood is their race, their lineage. But
How about
anyways,
your sister? How about your
oh, my sisters are white. They're both white.
yeah, but
Like, I mean, I don't want to say white, but I guess they're more leaning towards the conservative, Caucasian kind of way of thinking, because they're married and their in-laws are and such, and their extended family and their children are half, and so they're leaning more towards that. They're not imposing anything Filipino on their children. I guess they're strict in a way, but my brother-in-laws are strict as well. So it's not like an Asian thing, or it's not like a Filipino thing because like both my brother-in-laws have like a naval background. So, they're both like from uniformed
No, I
families.
mean
So,
that's yeah. I mean, I figure that's how it is. But all I'm saying is that like okay, your sisters are there, and they don't look white, and
they don't.
how right? So I mean, probably your because they're married to white guys, and that means your nephews or your niece. They
Or
probably have
half.
this, like
Yeah,
they're
on my eldest sister's side, they look kind of Latin American because my
right.
brother-in-law's
So
father is Spanish. My brother-in-law, the husband of my eldest sister, the Gomez, his
yeah.
father is
So
Spanish.
how
His
does this
mother is
affect them
Polish.
as somebody who's like in a mixed race? I know they think that way because basically they
I mean, how does it affect my
born
sister
there.
or my nephew and niece?
Well, in general, it's like 'cause it's like it's a race thing. It's like it's
Uh,
like it
well,
doesn't matter how you think it. There are other people who would like, for example, in my case, like I don't put like my daughter call me a foreigner. Like she just calls me a foreigner. She doesn't even consider herself a foreigner. She's so stupid. And
yeah,
she's like she calls
I
me a
guess.
foreigner, right? But the thing is, she doesn't even realize that other people look at her as a foreigner,
Yeah, but I
right?
guess that's what my sisters are. They're the same way as well. I mean, I think that's just how they are because they're so comfortable in their own skin and they're comfortable hanging out. They're so used to being with, let's say, the white folks or the Caucasians, or I mean, that's kind of the community they grow. I mean, even in Virginia, my sister was in the drill team. My eldest sister was in a sorority, all white girl sorority. So it's either I'm sure she felt some of that earlier on when we were like the first few years in Virginia. I mean, my
They
eldest sister, I
probably didn't.
remember. No, no, I remember my eldest sister. She mentioned it. I remember my eldest sister. She mentioned it because she had a boyfriend, and this dude was white as white can be, and she had to let go of that relationship because she felt the pressure on the guy because her boyfriend was the only one who had a non-white girlfriend in their frat circle, and so my sister kind of like let go of the dude. Like she had to because she felt the pressure on the dude, and she felt uncomfortable, and that's different because when you're in a fraternity or a sorority, you guys are always together. You're supposed to be brothers. You're supposed to be whatever. So you really do a lot of things together. And they all lived in a housing together, and in a frat house or a sorority house. So she lived with them and she felt it. It's different when you go to school with them, but it's different when you're together and then you see the white girls hang out and you come in and you walk in a room and you're like all of a sudden the mood changes. Like all of a sudden they stop talking, or all of a sudden there is that. I mean, I'm sure unless you're totally like manhid or indifferent, then maybe you won't feel anything. But I mean, I would feel that. Like I would feel like if I'm talking too much and like I'm even with Filipinos, even with the Filipino, like even with a group of let's say maybe a rich group of kids who've been together since they were in grade school. And then they just met me in college or something. And then I come in and I come off as like this guy who's like so confident with them, like you would feel that. So more so if it's like a race thing. And but the thing with Filipinos though is that we blend in, and that's the thing. So my two sisters especially, they blended in. They didn't come in and like present themselves to their friends as like, oh, I eat this or I watch this. No, like there were no trace. In fact, they were like like they were listening to Bon Jovi and Def Leppard. I never saw them like wear anything Asian. I never saw them like I think they were more confident when they were in London because in London, like my sisters, they had friends there who were from Brazil. I remember my middle sister, her best friend was like from Argentina. Her name's like Jimena or something, and but they were like going to this exclusive like British school, so they were more confident because I think the Brits are more open. Like the Brits love Indian food, the Brits love curry, the Brits hang out with the it's like they're actually excited about the minorities. Whereas in the US, there's kind of like the shallow kind of, oh, we're the chick group and you can't be a cheerleader if you're not blonde and blue eyed or something. And and I'm sure my sisters felt that the first few years, but having lived there for so long, having been in that circle for so long, I think they've become kind of colorblind to the fact that yes, they are minorities. Like I would look at them and I would like even tell my sister, like, doesn't everyone mistake you for like Mexican or something? I'm like, yeah, but when she was in LA, she's like, yeah, but like, everyone's Mexican here. She's like, Yeah, so what? I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's like an accepted thing. Like Latino. When you say Latino, they don't necessarily mean like Latino, like you're Mexican from the boat, you're across the wall. You're Mexican of lineage, but you're like American. You know, and my sister's like, my sister, my other sister's like, she's in Virginia Beach. She hangs out with, she doesn't have any like Filipino friends there. She doesn't hang out with any Filipino families there. So I think in a way, it's either her circle of white friends have just started to see her as like a white person disguised as an Asian or whatever the heck they think she is, or they just accepted her as like, because I mean, you see that in the U.S. a lot now. You see a lot of TV show hosts who are of Asian descent. You see a lot of celebrities now who are Asian. You see a lot of, so it's not a new thing anymore in the U.S. It's like, and the ones that they see in the U.S., like the representation of Asians in the U.S., they're not all like kung fu and Chinese food, and they're not like wok with yan, and they're not Chinese food cooks. A lot of them actually behave as if they're Americans, but they just look Asian. So that's kind of like an accepted thing now in the US. Whereas I remember when we were there in the US for the first few years, the only Asian shows you would see where featured Asians was Wok with Yan, which was this Chinese dude who would cook Chinese food and he spoke with an accent, and you would see him in this like public TV channel, and that was the only thing. Like you never see like a
Was
Chinese.
that shown in the U.S.? I thought that was only in the Philippines.
No, Walk with Yan was popular
Walk
in
with
the
Yan.
US. I don't
I
even know if that
know.
was popular here.
It was popular. Walk with Yan. So I thought there was a Filipino show
No, no, no. It's
because he
US. Walk
spoke
with
with an
Yan.
accent.
Yeah, he spoke with very strong accent.
But yeah,
And
but that's the thing. But that's the thing. It's like Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi
yes,
spoke
exactly.
with an accent.
Exactly.
But in real life, he doesn't have an accent.
Exactly. Exactly.
And for
So I
all we
mean
know,
that
Mr. Walk with Yan doesn't have an accent, but because of that TV show, he had to have an accent, right? They probably made him do it. Like, what do you think? Do you think he had an
you know
accent?
what? You know what? That I don't know. It's a possibility. Maybe they did to like add authenticity to it. Because like, that was a very because Chinese food was sort of like a treat in the U.S. I remember like if we graduated from high school or if it was like my sisters, whatever, we would all go to this Chinese buffet just for a change of pace. So I guess like, and you see these Americans like enjoying their fortune cookies and stuff. So it was like I guess it was like an exotic experience. So they needed a guy who had to have an accent, and I'm not sure. Maybe you're right. Maybe he spoke perfect English, but just the way, just how I'm saying is like when you compare it to my sisters now, they don't have to struggle as much. They don't have to struggle as much because like because I remember I got called out. I think I mentioned the story to you when I visited my dad in Bangkok once, and my sister Angel, the one you met, went to an American school there. So all her friends were Americans who were staying in Bangkok for some official reason. Maybe their parents were diplomats too. I don't know, but all her friends were like either the rich of the Thai families or just American kids whose parents were also staying in the U.S. because Thailand doesn't speak English, so you needed to go to an American school if you didn't speak Thai, and that's why my sister. So I remember hanging out with my sister Angel in Khao San Road, which is like this popular party street in Bangkok, and she had like two or three of her white classmates with her guys, and I remember sitting there, we were drinking beer, and I see this tall dude, black dude, like with an afro and stuff. I'm like, oh, dude, check out the fro. So I was like doing it, and the one of her friends said, "What's wrong with you, man? Are you like racist or something?" Like the guy called me out on that. So he didn't even look at me as a minority. I mean, he probably like because I was speaking in English to him, and probably he felt like okay, I grew up in the U.S. too, so it was like so comfortable. And I reacted to the guy's fro because he was standing out in the crowd because thighs are short like us. So this black dude was like had this big fro and he was walking, and he was, and I said, dude, check out this guy's fro, and he's like, what? And he's much younger than me, he's Angel's age, but he called
Yeah.
me out. He called me out. So I'm like,
No,
he said,
he was.
so I'm
He didn't
like,
call you out. He was just he was acting stupid. Cause they were like,
no,
oh, check out the guy's fro. I mean, I don't get it. Why would you like? Why you racist? Something like why? Is it racist to say like check out the fro?
yeah, I guess
Like
because I
somebody
was.
like a girl.
No, for him maybe because it's like, what is this the first?
Yeah, well,
What
he's
you're,
the racist then.
it's like what you're
He's the
laughing at
racist.
his hair. No, that's what I told him. That's what I said. That's like, no, man. I'm like, just like,
I
but
wouldn't
like
hang out with that guy. I wouldn't hang out with that guy.
well, it wasn't my friend. It was my sister's friend. But what I'm saying is, he didn't even look at me as a minority. Because I mean, like, if you're looked at as a
Yeah,
minority,
he's one of
they
these.
probably wouldn't think you're racist, right?
Me, Daddy looking high.
Okay, you want to say hi?
They're
Okay,
one
go
of
ahead.
these super woke
Hi.
people. Oh, hey. Hey,
Hi,
Diego.
Tito. He just woke up. His nose is still plugged up. I feel bad for him.
You okay?
But are you okay? You listen.
You okay?
Listen to Tito.
Hey,
Are you
Diego,
okay?
are you okay?
Let's
Um,
see.
you okay? You okay?
Yeah,
Are you hungry?
yeah.
What do you want to eat? Ice cream?
Eating. Yeah.
You need to eat rice first. You need to eat like actual food. Some meat and some vegetables. Then you can eat ice cream.
There's a snowman.
Snowman?
Snowman?
You want to eat a snowman?
Yeah, I saw how did the his face with snowman.
Don't speak Chinese, huh? You might be discriminated here.
Oh, look at this. The fall.
Okay. You go there. You go there. I'll talk to Tito muna. Huh? Okay, talk to Tito again later. Yeah, so anyway, I get what you mean. So, all I'm saying is like,
we talked about it before. Like
he was like sensitive. Yeah, remember I mentioned that? Yeah, I was like,
and
I'm like, what the heck? But like,
check
but-
out that guy's fur. It's like, oh, check out that guy's shoes. It's the same. Like they'd be like, oh, it's not the same thing. Well, it's sort of the same.
I guess because it's like a physical feature, of a particular race. So maybe he thought I was saying it like, laughing about it or something. It wasn't like about that. It was more of like his fashion sense. Like that guy was like trying to be cool, so he had like a fro on. Kind of like an NBA player. It's not like because he has an afro.
No, I mean, for example, like, all right. Okay, let's say, for example, like now, like, okay, let's take it in the context of, like, okay, black people, right? And me growing up, I see a lot of black, like, NBA players, like, mostly black. And they shave their heads. That's how it
Yeah.
was during our
Yeah.
time. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson.
Kobe did
right?
it. Shaq did it.
But then you go back like 10 years earlier.
It was
like
afro.
when Michael Jordan was first drafted. Dude, it was like I was just like looking at like this
Kareem,
documentary
Dr.
on
J,
ESPN.
they all had
Dr.
afros.
J, I was just like, holy shit, dog! Look at that fro. I was like, holy, that's
Exactly.
What, it looks so like I was like, holy shit! I didn't know that like playing basketball with a fro would look so cool. You know what I'm saying? Like in our times, like, all right, you shave your head, like, oh, that looks cool, right? But then I saw this.
But now it's back, right? Like the Ball brothers, like LaMelo is growing his out. It's back. I mean,
No, but dude, they can't rock it like Dr.
It's not
J.
the same, no.
Right? Nobody can tell
Not.
like, oh, you're racist. Like, no, I'm just saying, like, well, yeah, I'm not black. I don't have a fro, whatever. But I'm looking at people like, well, Dr. J, he rocked that fro, man.
Yeah, but I mean, I couldn't blame that guy though.
I'm like,
Yeah, I couldn't blame that guy though because he didn't exactly know where I was coming from. Like he didn't know if I meant it as like, oh, that's a cool fro. I just blurted it out, and he didn't know me well enough. That, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first night we hung out, and it was like that was the first thing I pointed out. I didn't point out like his fashion sense. I didn't say like, oh, what a cool fro. Oh, look at that, guys. And afro and the fro hair back then. This was like what? Early 90s and early 2000s. This was like maybe 2003, 2004 when I did that, when that happened. So it wasn't like a fashionable thing yet back then where it is now. Like if you say fro, oh, cool fro, like, oh, it's like it's a fashionable thing now. It's like the fro's making a comeback, with with their fro combs sticking out and stuff. That's like you say that to somebody, it doesn't seem like discriminatory at all. It's more of like complimenting them. But back then, which was like I said, early 2000s, maybe back then, since the fro wasn't making a comeback yet, and I don't know. He was, like I said, he was much younger than I was. But I was taken aback by the fact that he accused me of being racist because I was like, this is a white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes. So saying that me, I was just taken aback. I'm like, okay, should I take that as a compliment because he could actually see me as somebody who could also discriminate somebody, or should I take that as I mean, I felt like I was corrected by somebody younger. I mean, but I didn't feel offended by it because I knew I wasn't being racist when I said it. I actually just said it because like it stood out. I'm like, oh, look at that guy's fro. But when he said it, so I'm like, it just goes to show you that that there are people who are more sensitive to stuff like that, regardless of whether you mean it or not. So sometimes, like what you said like you would say, oh, he's the racist, right? Because why was he so sensitive to it? Did he immediately accuse me of being racist? Maybe he was the one with that mindset. Maybe if he had said that, maybe he would have meant that in a derogatory term, in a derogatory way, right? So you're right. You do have a point that I could have brought that up with him, but he was my sister's friend, so I couldn't disrespect him, and I was like the kuya, so I was basically watching over them. But I get what you mean. I get what you mean because since we are a minority, we immediately assume that we get a pass from saying stuff like that, Like, oh, because you're a minority, you can call all white people G.I. Joe. You can call all black guys LeBron. You can, because you're also a minority. So you feel like, oh, since I'm a victim, I can't be an oppressor. I can't oppress somebody. I can't be guilty of making somebody be a victim, right? You can't be a suspect because you feel like you're also a victim. Sometimes we feel that way, and in the eyes of other people, that's not the case. So in the eyes of other people, if they feel like you say something that might seem offensive, it doesn't matter if you're Filipino, doesn't matter if you're brown, doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're whatever it can be. But because like for us, we feel like if a white person does it, like think about this. The things that white people will say, if the white folks would say the stuff that we would say, like in a normal conversation about other races, dude, they would be like put under the meat grinder. They would be like, oh, they're Hitler's grandchildren. They're like evil incarnate. But because we're not white and we don't feel like we were guilty of, enslaving black people, we all of a sudden feel like we can talk about them and laugh about them and say stuff about them. I mean, you hear that. Like if a black guy passes by a sari-sari store, you can hear all these like Pinoy remarks about him, whether it's complimentary or insulting, it's racist nonetheless. But we don't feel like even when we hear a Pinoy say, we laugh about it. We don't correct them. Like, would you correct? You don't go, hey, don't say that. That's racist. We don't, because we feel like we had nothing to do with them being victims. So we cleanse our hands off of it. So it entitles us to also, like if Dave Chappelle says something about Asians, and he says a lot about Asians because he knows Asians, because like I said, he's white Filipino, right? So he says a lot about Asians. It's like it's not as offensive as it would be if, let's say, Bill Burr said it, or like, but Bill Burr's married to a black woman, so I guess maybe that doesn't count too. But let's say just like a white dude, said it. It's not. We're not gonna get as offended. Like when Jokoy talks about the Japanese and the Vietnamese and the Indians, or when Russell, what's that guy's name? The Indian comedian, when he talks about his Filipino friend or his white friend or whatever, people don't really take offense at it because he's a minority talking about fellow minorities. But if it's a white dude doing that kind of joke, dude, he would be freaking, crucified. So, I kind of feel bad about white people now. Like they can't do anything now. If they're,
Right.
they can't. If they're too
It
right.
sucks to be white probably nowadays, right?
Dude, it does, dude. You're always like watching your back. You're always kind of like accused of something. Like you can't even laugh at somebody's clothes now if you're white. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, and it
I mean,
sucks
where's the
because
fun in that, right? Because me, I used to, like, we used to do that. Me and my friends
it's
would
normal.
we'd be sitting at the bench, at um, the soccer field,
Look at the lights,
and
Daddy.
we'd be checking out people. We'd be checking out what they wear.
Lolo,
Yeah, I
Daddy.
know.
If they look funny or whatever. Like it's like in the spirit of fun. I mean, you don't let the person know. I mean, you don't do that in to their face. You kind of like you talk about it, but you don't really talk about it like in front of them because you don't want to
True that.
offend them. Still, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's still not a good thing to do, but it's like, well, it's just you're just having a bit of fun, right?
I get what you're
I mean, we
saying.
make
I get what you're saying.
we okay, dude. Like we make fun of our own friends. Like our own friends, if they're wearing something funny, we make fun of them, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Sometimes to their face, sometimes
Mama,
not, because like I mean, if we have a friend who's like already so sensitive, we can't do that in front of like in front of him, so we can talk behind his back and like we'll have fun about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we discriminate against him. It's just like you're just laughing at something that he wore that was like really it was really funny.
So are we all like being fake
Oh,
now? Just to be politically correct? Like, I mean, when a person's like, when a person,
Can be,
like, let's just say anything racist, or when the person's like totally kind to another culture or race or group of people, we don't know anymore what's real with that person because their thoughts could be different from their actions. I mean, we all feel like there's CCTV, right? So we all have this CCTV personality now, and the only place where we can be really comfortable about our thoughts and our words is when we're at home, right?
right?
That's the only place. Because I mean, you see all these celebrities. I mean, like what happened to Rachel? One of my favorites in ESPN. What's her name?
Rachel Nichols.
Rachel Nichols. I mean, I love her. I mean, I love her as a sportscaster. I think she comes off real. I think she's great balance of like, she knows what she's talking about, and yet she's very human about it as well. And she just comes off pleasant to me. I mean, she's not the prettiest face in the world, but
Right.
she's okay. But because of her remarks that was supposedly recorded, and it wasn't even like anything majorly racial. She was basically stating a fact. She was basically saying, "Oh, they gotta favor this girl now because they gotta make sure that the exposure of all ethnicities or all groups or whatever the diversity or something like yes that's basically what she said, like they have to be diverse or there has to be diversity or something amongst their staff, so now she's gonna get this coverage or whatever. That's basically what she said, which was a fact. It wasn't even like a racial statement when you think about it, but it just came off as such because she was referring to a girl of color. But it's really true. That's really part of ESPN's drive now. You watch ESPN, it's like there are more women sportscasters than men. And I'm like, what's going on here? We have female referees in the NBA now. I'm like, they're kind of forcing the issue here. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were times when some calls were made of NBA players, and you could see how ticked off the NBA players were, and it was called by a female referee. And when the coach challenged it, they reversed the call because clearly she was wrong, but that's her perspective. Maybe her lack of experience, maybe the fact that she. And I'm just saying, it's like, and she got fired for it.
It's so fit.
And she lost her job, and she was fit. She was a fit for that. She was doing a good job. It's like, should you really do that? Like, are we that sensitive now? Like, I mean,
I think we are. Everybody's sensitive these days.
I mean that.
I mean, I don't think that's everybody. I think there's just like so many people online who are. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Bill Maher. I mean, it's not all people. It's not even majority. There's just like these, small group of people who just makes a lot of, they just make a lot of noise, right? So it's not everybody. I don't think it's everybody. I don't even think it's majority. Because I've talked to several people and they're white as well, and and they're pretty much liberal, but they're not as hardcore as some of these people. I mean, how they
Well, that's
sound and stuff, right?
that's that's the thing though. It's like when you have a friend or somebody, you don't know anymore who they're really representing. Like, are you really speaking from? Are those really your genuine thoughts, or are you saying these things because you're afraid that you might say something that might offend me? Like, now we kind of like have to present another part of ourselves. We're all trying to be like politicians now. We can't say anything that's because it might be taken out of context or it might be misinterpreted. And I hate that because I'm a talkative guy. And that's one of the reasons why, I'm always thinking twice about posting something, or if there's an issue that I kind of maybe want to do a podcast episode about, I'm like, F it, because if I do this, shit, I'm going to, I know somebody's not going to see it from my perspective, or I know somebody's going to try to find something about what I'm saying. And though that should not control me, but still, But still, I don't want to be put in a light where it puts doubt in people's minds about my sentiments of certain things because I'm too old to explain everything to people. Like what am I gonna say? Like, no, I'm not. That's not what I meant. Come to my house, get to know me for 10 years, and you'll know that's not what I meant. We don't have time to do that. People will just immediately take you for what you say, for what you do, for what you show, and that's holding back a lot of people. Like even when you watch Joe Rogan, like there are a lot of things that he wants to say, and that's why he invites all these like loose cannon comedians in his show because he lets them say the things that he would want to say. But since he's on a large contract with Spotify and he's on YouTube and he doesn't want to lose his endorsements and whatnot, it can't come from his mouth. But that these loose cannon comedians who have nothing to lose, they're speaking for him because he laughs at it. He doesn't contradict it. Like when they talk about allowing transsexual athletes or something, like males who have sex changed compete in a women's competition. Like, should that be allowed? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
No, I don't think so. It shouldn't be.
do, yeah, it's allowed now. Like they're fighting for that. Like, isn't there a clear advantage? I mean, like can't if you like what if LeBron decides to be a woman and joins the WNBA, right? How is
He
that?
should do that. LeBron should do that just to teach these people a lesson. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, have his balls cut off, put a vagina in its place, just to teach people a lesson. Come on.
I don't even. I don't even. Well, I think you don't even have to do that. You don't have to cut your balls to be. I mean, if you just say that you identify as a whatever, then that's it. That's the end.
Oh,
of
there
it.
you go. Oh, there you go. LeBron should do
Doesn't
it.
even have to cut his balls and replace it with a vagina or whatever. He just needs to say that, hey, I feel like a woman. I identify as a woman. I'm a woman. I'm a woman now. All right. Kids, call
Yeah.
me mom. Don't call me papa now. Call me mom. I'll be in the WNBA and I'm gonna score 800 points per game.
And if people will say, oh no, it's like it's even, like men and women. Come on, like you watch an WNBA game. How many documented dunks have been performed by
Okay,
female
here's the
WNBA
thing.
players? How many dunks have been performed by NBA players? If there's no difference between male and female athletes,
No,
okay.
there is. There's, of course, there is.
All right.
But here's the thing, and I feel bad because I played basketball like a couple of nights ago, and here's the thing. There's this girl who was, into basketball, right? And we're like all playing, whatever. And I'm pretty liberal, right? So I'm all for equality and whatnot, and that's across the board. So we were playing, and I just blocked her like crazy, and I felt so bad. I don't know how the other guys, felt about it. I just like blocked her. But she was a shooter too. You can't just let her shoot. So I was thinking, like, I don't know, but yeah, she probably didn't even think about it like, afterwards. But I was just like, I wonder how the other guys felt about it, right? Because they would just like let her, And me, if I'm playing, I don't want to lose. Doesn't matter, like, if it's like in the Philippines, you need to have like pusta, so that you'll take the game seriously, right? Like here, like nobody does that. So, but everyone takes it seriously though. But then with me, I take it to like sort of another level because I really don't want to lose. Like,
Yeah. They take it
so
seriously, but not the Pinoy seriously.
no,
Where
no. Like
you know what I'm
I
saying?
wanna win.
Pamugasay, pamugasay,
You,
whatever.
you don't hurt people, whatever. You don't. Like,
Yeah.
But then, if I, I would block if I need to block. I would make those shots and stuff. I don't get mad at other people for not making their shots or whatever. But it's just one of those things. So I just like blocked her shot, and that was like that was a pretty good block. So it was just like I felt so bad. I was like, was that the right thing to do, or should have been a gentleman? But then my friend was like, nah, she probably forgot about it. She probably didn't even think about it, like after. But I was just like, all right. But so what I was trying to, what I'm trying to say is like, you know what? Like, see, I mean, she was in the game, so I treated her like a guy. So it's like, all right, you're not getting a pass. I'm gonna block your shot. Like no, I mean, you know, and I think she would prefer it that way, right? Because
Yeah.
she's in the game, and if you give her a pass, then I mean, what's the point, right? She cannot up her game. She cannot develop into whoever she. I mean, I mean, it's not like we're playing professional sports here, but it's more of like me. I'm playing up until now. I'm still trying to like at least have a good game every time. So it's more of like that. I mean, if nobody's gonna challenge you, then you know what I'm saying. What's the point?
Yeah, I got you. I got you, man. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's like you really want to play this for real, because you didn't. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm always holding back. Like, I've never competed against the opposite sex directly in anything. I do know that, like, in certain disciplines, like martial arts, they can even the playing field if they're at a high enough rank. Like I said, I had an ex girlfriend whose sister you knew, you know. I don't know if you're batchmates or what, but and she was like black belt in taekwondo, and I was like red belt only. And she went to the house, and she was like, she returned some stuff, and she was so mad about it, and she punched me like in the back because she was mad, and I felt it. I was like, shit, you can punch, and maybe because of her training. So like if I went up against Sabrina, who's the Ionescu? Yes, Sabrina Ionescu of WNBA. Like, I would get destroyed. You know what I'm saying? She could probably score against some of the PBA players too, to be honest. But there's still that difference. Like if you're on the same level, proficiency wise, it would be different. But I don't want to get into that. I just want to say, it's like I get what you're saying too. I get what you're, okay. I just want to read CJ's take real quick. My take would be it depends, and especially if it's a major advantage, it should be on its different category because physically it's just different. It's not being a bigot or anything. It's just science. Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I don't even want to go into this because I don't know who's really gonna dispute this. I haven't really heard a lot of women contradict this or be defensive about it. I think they kind of accept that fact, in most cases. This is an argument that doesn't have to be an argument. I think it's substantiated by facts. But it's more about like the mindset and your approach to the issue. You know, if it's an issue about participation, there's no issue there. Go ahead, participate. But if it's an issue about is it fair competition, there might be instances where it's not fair competition. You know, if LeBron played for the WNBA, it's not gonna be pretty for the other team, basically. So that's all. Anyways,
What's this? It's a very can of worms type of argument. Yeah. Right.
I agree. It is. But we know if it's just between us, it's a different kind of argument. Like this argument would end quick. But out of
Right.
consideration for certain members of the audience, maybe, or those who might be more sensitive,
Sometimes there's just like arguments that are just meant to be, just meant to be arguments and just being silly. Does it really mean anything? You just argue and after that, that's it. You know what I'm saying?
like should you be a gentleman or should you be, should it be fair? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, so can we do Saturday?
Yeah, I think I'm good Saturday.
Yeah, then you don't show up. You're like, oh, yeah, I can do Saturday. I'm like,
In all fairness, I totally forgot that one, and that was the one we were hyping up too. I'm like, hey, let's plug something. Let's really have a topic. Blah 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 blah. And my in-laws came over. My wife he just told me like an hour before they would show up. So we had to go to the grocery. We had to buy stuff, and then like I
Okay,
got busy and I can't let my wife handle all that mess by herself.
all right.
I totally forgot,
some-
and I didn't check my
went
phone.
down.
Like I didn't check my phone. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the thing. Like there are times
Yeah.
when I don't check my phone, or I scroll through my phone but don't.
Well, it's a good thing.
Just
It's a
leave
good
it.
thing.
Let
It's,
it be. Don't worry about it. Leave it. Okay.
Families
Anyways,
families around, so that's a good thing. Like, yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
know,
I'm
but
I'm thankful like the pandemic's done and like everybody's like loose and everybody's just out
oh yeah,
and
oh
about,
yeah,
right?
it's
So
it's
it's a good
back,
thing. But all right,
it's
so if
back.
we can do Saturday, let's do Saturday, 9 p.m. Philippine time. And all right, let's just finish this week with with something positive. All right, let's just be positive about things and you know, I mean, positivity. Let's spread positivity. That's the most important thing. Um, yeah, there's just like so much negativity going on around with all these things happening with Kanye, with Kyrie, and all this like midterm elections in the U.S. and probably we have our own stuff going on in the Philippines. Same thing here in Japan. So yeah, let's just spread some positivity. Let's be positive and let's just be happy, and let's see each other on the weekend. And folks, join us 9 p.m. Philippine time.
Yes, folks, for real this time.
All right, for real this time. No excuses. All right, so thanks a lot for joining us. It has been see we're a bit rusty because it's been like it's been like one time every week, but I think we had a really good Thursday night last
I
week.
know it does
So
have an effect, huh? It has an effect. Like if you
I
don't
know,
do it consecutively, you're like all of a sudden your mind's like
but
you know.
yeah, it's wondering like yeah. So let's okay. CJ, join us on Saturday. All right, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, Patrick's kind of like I think he got a job. So I would love to have him on the show and find out like what's going on with him because he hasn't
Then
been
Ian
around
too.
lately.
I want to hear his side in Canada, but he disappeared. He's like, "What's up?" And then he didn't.
I
He
know.
was
Like
gone.
I mean, idol nila si Joe Boy. All right, they look up to Joe Boy, the what's up guy.
Yeah,
What's up, bros? And like he
Job
disappeared.
boy's the man. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Anyways, yeah.
So
So Saturday.
Saturday, 9 p.m. Philippine time. And thank you for joining us. This has been the OK Show. Rod Rodriguez and Iceman. Thanks a lot for joining us. Good night. We are out. See ya.